The moment I pushed open the bedroom door, time stopped. My wife, Melissa, was standing beside our bed with another man, both of them frozen for a split second before breaking into laughter. It wasn't nervous laughter. It was cruel, confident laughter, the kind that only comes from people convinced they've already won. The stranger smirked as if I were an inconvenience in my own house, while Melissa folded her arms and said, "You really should have knocked." My heart shattered, but somehow I stayed silent. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply looked around the room, and noticed one tiny detail neither of them realized would destroy everything they believed they had. For nearly 12 years, I had believed my marriage was built on trust. Melissa and I had survived layoffs, family tragedies, and countless sacrifices. I worked overtime so she could chase her dream career, while she constantly reminded everyone that I was the dependable husband. Lately, though, she had become distant. More late-night meetings, more secret phone calls, more excuses that never quite made sense. Friends hinted something was wrong, but I refused to believe them. Love has a dangerous way of convincing people to ignore the evidence staring directly into their faces. Standing there, I finally understood why every conversation over the past 6 months had felt rehearsed. Melissa wasn't shocked that I had arrived early. She looked almost relieved. It was as though she had expected this confrontation eventually. Her lover stepped closer, introducing himself with an arrogant grin. "I'm Daniel," he said. "You should probably get used to seeing me around." Melissa laughed again, and together they treated my pain like entertainment. They expected screaming, threats, maybe even violence. Instead, I quietly picked up my car keys from the dresser, smiled politely, and walked out without saying a single word. That silence haunted them more than any argument could have. As I drove away, memories replayed in my head like scenes from a movie. Then I remembered something almost insignificant. 3 months earlier, Melissa had insisted we move every important financial document into a locked cabinet in our bedroom. She claimed it was for convenience, yet that cabinet also contained a small black folder she had repeatedly warned me never to touch because it supposedly held confidential paperwork from her employer. At the time, I respected her privacy. Now, every instinct told me that folder mattered far more than she had admitted. Instead of driving aimlessly, I headed to my office downtown. Few people knew I owned more than half the company where Melissa worked. Years earlier, I had quietly invested through a holding corporation after selling a software startup. I never mentioned it because I wanted employees, including my own wife, to succeed based on merit rather than personal connections. Melissa believed the company belonged entirely to an executive board she had never met. Ironically, one of the signatures approving every major promotion was mine. She had spent years complaining about the invisible owner, without realizing she ate dinner with him every evening. The next morning, I requested access logs, expense reports, and internal compliance records. I wasn't searching for revenge anymore. I wanted the truth. Within hours, an investigator from our legal department called with unexpected news. Daniel wasn't just an employee from another division. He had been using company funds for fake business trips, luxury hotel stays, and unauthorized reimbursements. Even worse, Melissa had approved several of those expenses herself using her management credentials. What looked like an affair was suddenly becoming something much bigger, a trail of financial misconduct that neither of them could simply laugh away. By sunset, my lawyer placed a thick file on the conference table. Hidden inside were emails, forged approvals, deleted invoices recovered from backups, and security footage proving Daniel and Melissa had met during hours they claimed to be visiting clients. The affair was only the surface. Beneath it lay fraud, deception, and a conspiracy that could cost them both their careers. For the first time since opening that bedroom door, I smiled. Not because I wanted revenge, but because the truth was finally beginning to reveal itself. And neither of them had the slightest idea that the worst part was still waiting for them. The following Monday, I attended the company's executive board meeting without warning anyone. Melissa and Daniel were already seated outside the conference room, laughing with coworkers as if nothing had changed. The instant I walked past them, Melissa's smile disappeared. She couldn't understand why security greeted me by name or why the chairman personally opened the boardroom door for me. Daniel looked confused, but still confident. Minutes later, they were both summoned inside. As the presentation screen lit up, the chairman calmly introduced me as the company's majority shareholder. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument either of them had imagined. Daniel tried to recover by insisting everything was a misunderstanding, but the legal team had already prepared a timeline. Every fraudulent reimbursement, every fake travel claim, every forged approval appeared on the screen with dates, signatures, and supporting evidence. Melissa's face turned pale as she realized the black folder she had hidden in our bedroom wasn't protecting her. It had actually helped investigators verify the missing documents. The laughter from my bedroom echoed in my memory, but I said nothing. I simply watched as the confidence drained from both of their faces, replaced by fear they could no longer hide. Then came the twist no one expected. During the investigation, auditors uncovered something Daniel himself didn't know. He had been manipulated by another senior executive who used him as a convenient shield for a much larger embezzlement scheme. Daniel believed he was stealing thousands of dollars. In reality, millions had vanished through accounts he never even knew existed. That executive had carefully planted evidence pointing toward Daniel and Melissa while quietly preparing to disappear overseas. Suddenly, the people who had mocked me realized they weren't the masterminds. They had been expendable pawns from the very beginning. Federal investigators moved quickly once the larger fraud surfaced. The executive attempting to flee was arrested at the airport before boarding an international flight. Digital records, surveillance footage, and financial transfers exposed the entire operation. Daniel admitted his role and agreed to cooperate, hoping for a reduced sentence. Melissa insisted she never understood the full extent of what had happened, but ignorance couldn't erase the approvals carrying her electronic signature. The same confidence that once filled our bedroom was gone forever. Every decision they believed would secure their future had instead become evidence leading investigators directly to them. While lawyers handled the legal consequences, I focused on rebuilding my own life. The divorce was finalized quietly. I kept the house, protected my personal assets through our prenuptial agreement, and donated part of the recovered money to an employee hardship fund that helped families affected by the fraud. Friends kept asking whether revenge felt satisfying. The truth surprised even me. Watching someone lose everything isn't nearly as rewarding as finally finding peace. The real victory wasn't their downfall. It was realizing I no longer needed their approval, their excuses, or their lies to move forward with my life. Months later, I happened to drive past the small apartment where Melissa had moved after everything collapsed. For a brief moment, I remembered the woman I had once loved, not the stranger who laughed while destroying our marriage. I felt sadness, but not hatred. One careless choice had triggered another until every lie demanded an even bigger lie. In the end, it wasn't my anger that ruined them. It was the truth they believed would never come to light. Secrets always seem powerful, until the day they are forced into the open for everyone to see. As I locked the office one evening, the sunset reflected across the glass windows, reminding me how close I had come to letting betrayal define my entire future. Instead, it became the beginning of a better chapter. Trust should never mean ignoring warning signs, and silence is sometimes stronger than the loudest revenge. Melissa and Daniel thought they had already won the moment they laughed in my face. They never realized that the smallest hidden secret would expose every lie, destroy every illusion, and leave them with nothing but the consequences of their own choices.